So, in the previous video, we talked about the different types of writing and language questions that you would see. And I was pretty general about that in terms of the general idea about command of evidence, words in context, expression of ideas, standard English conventions. Then I broke down the different types. You can look back at that, remembering to look at the questions first, read the underlined portion that it contains, respond, trying the various answer choices, and then trying saving the rhetoricals for last if they're more difficult for you, you're not sure. So I want to give you some specific in this video segment. I want to give you some specific examples of what that looks like based on a test that if you were a senior at Lake Fenton, you would have taken. So I'm going to cut myself out here and I'm going to look at some specific ones for the first section. If it comes up, sometimes my screencastify is a little slow. Remember that it's worth noting again: 35 minutes, 44 questions, about 8 to 9 minutes per passage. You want to pace yourself. So let's look at the number one here. So again, I'm going to go look at the underlying portion in the sentence that it contains. Studies have shown that employees are happier, healthier, and more productive. Well, when they work in an environment in which temperatures are carefully controlled. So we have C number 1 and 2 are kind of together. I told you no changes. The answer 25% of the time. Healthier and more happier, healthier. So parallel construction, sentence structure is the type of question this is. We have a sentence structure: healthier and more productive. When they work in a happier, healthier, and more productive. Yes, they use the Oxford comma and the SAT, and so there is no change here. This works as parallel construction, in which temperatures are carefully controlled. Well, if you go through, you're not going to be sure which choice provides the most appropriate introduction to the passage. You want to make sure you read the question as well. Which choice provides the most appropriate introduction to the passage? This would be talking about lighting. If you keep reading along here, and giving, and this is where sometimes you have to read you will have to read the context, and also it's right in the title: some shed light in the workplace. You're going to know that it's about lighting, so that it's not about temperatures. So the best answer here is that affords them adequate amounts of natural light. It's talking about the importance of natural light. When employees balk at the expense of reconfiguring such buildings, the increasing amount of natural light, the investment is shown to be well worth it in the long run. So that's why sometimes you have to read the sentences around it to get an idea, especially with the rhetorical organization type questions, which is what that one is, a rhetorical organization type question. Again, another rhetorical question with number 3. At this point, the writer is considering adding the following sentence: workers in offices with windows sleep an average of 46 minutes more per night than workers in offices without windows. Should the writer make this addition here? So they're talking about lack of exposure to natural light as a significant impact on employees' health. A study conducted in 2013 by Northwestern in Chicago shows that inadequate natural light can result in eye strain, headaches, and fatigue, as well as interference with the body's circadian rhythms. Some of you staying up too late, right? So, which are controlled by the body's biological clocks. Should the writer make the addition that workers in office with windows sleep an average of 46 minutes more per night? Should the writer make this addition here? Well, knowing what circadian rhythms are, biological clock, no, because it interrupts the discussion of circadian rhythms. They start talking about circadian rhythms, influence body temperature, hormone release. So it's an extraneous sentence. So it's, again, a rhetorical type of question. Strategy, organization. Do you have to know the type of questions exactly? Do you have to know these types of questions exactly? No, you do not need to know them, verbatim. It's helpful to identify what they are. This is a good example. Number 3 is a good example of a question that maybe you might skip if you're struggling with it. With the yes, yes, no, no question, yes, yes, no, no type of question. First of all, decide whether that belongs there, and then what is the reason why. So if you say, well, this doesn't belong here, then it's going to be one of the no questions. In terms of whether it belongs there or not. So let's move on to number 4, circadian rhythms, which are controlled by the body's biological clock. Okay, immediately we can see with a lot of punctuation in our answer choices here. So we know that this is a, I need to get to my eraser. We know that this is a punctuation type of question. We know that this is some sort of punctuation question. So we know bodies, biological clocks. Excuse me while I hit the eraser on this so you can see it. There we go. We know that the body's biological clock is what we're looking for. Body. They're talking about. We want one body, the body. So body apostrophe s biological clocks, which are controlled by the body's biological clocks. We know this is a sentence that is offset with a phrase, which and some sort of a phrase here. So we want to be able to have it offset with commas. So influence body temperature, hormone release, cycles of sleep and wakefulness, and other bodily functions. So we know that this needs to be surrounded by a comma. So the best answer is C. Punctuation, apostrophes, and possessives is what we're looking at. And also probably comma usage as well. So I should probably add commas there as well. That's addressed. And then number 5 is a subject-verb agreement question. Like any other health problems, these ailments can increase employee absenteeism, which in turn is costly for employers. The key is then knowing what word is or phrase is the subject that we're trying to agree is with. And in this case, it would be, breaking it down, absenteeism. Absenteeism. It wouldn't be health problems. It's costly for taxpayers. It's employee absenteeism is the employee absenteeism is the word that we're trying to deal with here. Employee absenteeism. So employee absenteeism is singular, so it would be employee absenteeism is costly for taxpayers. If you're uncertain how to do those, break it down. Get rid of the extra words. Employee absenteeism is costly for employers. That would be the correct subject-verb agreement there. So that's what we want to do. Is costly for taxpayers. Number 6. Which choice best supports the statement made in the previous sentence, talking about employee absenteeism costly for taxpayers? No change. So this is the previous sentence here. That's why I circled it in purple. Employees who feel less than 100% and are sleep deprived are less prone to work at their maximum productivity. So I'm just going to read the sentences around it. So number 6 is asking you which choice best supports the statement made in the previous sentence. One company in California gained a huge boost in employee morale. Employees who feel are less prone to being back to productivity. So we want something that employees saw a 5% increase in productivity would best support that sentence. Again, rhetorical, connecting sentences and ideas. Another rhetorical type of question where you got to go back and look at the previous sentence. Okay, number 7. Artificial light sources are also costly aside from lowering worker productivity. Which choice best combines the underlined sentence? So this is this is a harder type of question. It's asking you, it's starting a new paragraph, so that we know then, because it's starting a new paragraph, that we want to go back and look at the previous paragraph of what it's talking about. It's talking about worker productivity, and how we saw a 5% increase in productivity. Remember, we replaced that underlying portion, number 6, when it moved from artificially lit distribution facilities to one with natural illumination. So number 7 then is artificial light sources are also costly aside from lowering worker productivity. Well, that doesn't really make much sense. You can see. So aside from lowering worker productivity, artificial light sources are also costly. So this is what we call, the best word is an integrated transition. So the previous paragraph is talking about worker productivity and how artificial light lowers worker productivity. So aside from lowering worker productivity, artificial light sources are also costly, typically constitute anywhere from 25 to 50%. That's our best choice because it provides an integrated transition. The other choices don't do that. The cost of artificial light sources, we weren't talking about the cost of them. We weren't talking about what they constitute as far as building use, and we were talking about artificial lights, which lower productivity and are costly, typically constitute anywhere from 25 to 50% of the building's usage. So we wanted this the integrated transition to be at the front, where we're making a seamless transition. That's what an integrated transition is. That's why we want, aside from lowering worker productivity at the beginning and as an introductory clause to that sentence. Okay, that's a tricky one, harder one. But what you're looking for sometimes when it starts out to a new paragraph is that integrated transition. Integrated transition is like not using first, last, second. You're using the words that are in the paragraph above it to make an integrated transition to introduce the next paragraph. That's good quality writing, and that's what they're modeling here. That's good quality writing to use an integrated transition. It's actually something you should be practicing doing anyways. Number 8 is asking you, again, it's an omit type of question, and if you see delete there, it might mean that it's redundant. And sure enough, when a plant in Seattle, Washington was redesigned for more natural, the company was able to enjoy annual electricity cost reductions of $500,000 each year. Annual, okay, so annual and annual and each year are the same thing, right? So that's why we delete it. It's redundant, right? So that's why we would delete it there. And sure enough, that's what we would do. Delete it. Okay. Moving on to the next paragraph. Number 9. So among the possibilities to reconfigure buildings' lighting is the installation of full pane windows to allow the greatest degree of natural sunlight to reach office interiors. Now we have a transitional word here, thus, nevertheless. So we need to keep reading to decide which one works best. Businesses can install light tubes. These are pipes placed in workplace roofs. Okay, that's not a connection to reconfiguring full pane windows. Light tubes are different. So would it be nevertheless? No, it's not a continuation. So what type of transition word do we need here? We need a transition word of contrast. So alternatively would be our best choice. We need to decide, when you're looking at a transitional word, what type of transitional word do you need? Number 10, these are pipes. Can install light tubes. These are pipes. So it's asking you what type of modifier do we need here, right? It's a continuation of a sentence, so we definitely need something that's going to connect these clauses, these dependent clauses. A dependent clause is one that cannot stand alone, remember. So we need which are pipes placed in workforces. Those being, that would need to be an independent clause. That would need to be the start of a sentence or an independent clause. Remember, an independent clause is one that has subject, verb, object. It can stand alone. Dependent clauses like this one, alternatively, business can install light tubes, that's an independent clause, but this is a dependent clause, which are pipes placed in workplace roofs to capture and funnel light. We need to make a dependent clause here because we have a comma. We don't have a semicolon. So we remember semicolons, if we were to separate them with a semicolon, which wouldn't be an option, those they are would work. Those being doesn't work here because it doesn't properly modify this independent clause. This is an independent clause, remember, because it can stand alone. Alternatively, businesses can install light tubes. Well, we're adding the test takers, writers are asking you to add a dependent clause to that. So that's accomplished with which are. Okay. Last one for number 11, it's a modifier. So which modifier best works? Glass walls and dividers can also be used to replace. And I'm just going right. Sometimes I only read what I need. Notice it's a test taking strategy. Back to this again. I'm only reading what I need to read. If I need to read the sentences around it, I do. If not, I'm just going to move around to where the underlying portion is. Glass walls, and I don't need about the sunlight stuff. Glass walls and dividers can also be used to replace solid walls as a means of, now this is one where I would just try them. Through distributing the natural light more freely? No. Of distributing, a means of? Yes, that would work. A means from distributing? No, that doesn't sound right. Delete the underlying portion. If we delete it as a means distributing, that doesn't work. That doesn't make any sense either. So sometimes we just go through them and decide if they make sense, and we can eliminate ones that do not make sense. And so the best choice here is B. the best choice is B. So what I've done here for a test that you hopefully remember taking, or if you remember this a little bit that you've gone through this, I've hopefully gone through some of this and said, okay, here's how we look at some of the types of questions. So again, some of these are questions that are um, some of these are questions that are I want to look at that are questions that are harder, that you may need to skip if you're running out of time, or they're questions that that are that you need to specifically look at, knowing the types of questions. While you're not required to memorize those types of questions, it is helpful to understand what the question is asking for and the skills. And I'm giving you some examples here, and I may make it looks like I may end up making another video to give you some of some of these skills as we're going along, because it looks like I did another one here a little bit to decide on types of questions, um, and understanding how to tackle them as you're going through is a big step in succeeding in going through these questions and successfully.